Welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Insider, KSL Sports. This is the instant reaction to the breaking news. Alex Jensen has been hired, has accepted the job of head coach for the Utah men's basketball program. This is huge for Utah basketball, Utah athletics. And so here I am to react to the news. To bring home Alex Jensen gives Utah a connection to their storied past. It gives them somebody that the fan base can believe in to lead them into the future. And this was the guy from the moment this coaching search began. He was the guy. And to get your guy, to get your top target, undeniably, unquestionably the top target for Utah, this is huge. This is huge for the program, for President Taylor Randall, for Athletic Director Mark Harlan, for the Utah fan base. This is the guy. And so let's react. Let's dive into this. So following the dismissal of Craig Smith, I've heard a lot that there was communication, or at least an understanding. I haven't been able to confirm when exactly communication was had, and I doubt I ever will be able to confirm that. But I firmly believe that Utah had a good idea that there was interest, and that Jensen understood what was coming, essentially. And so Utah made the decision, and that came on Monday. On Tuesday, Utah flew to Los Angeles. I believe this was Mark Harlan, maybe a couple other Utah officials, but they flew down to Los Angeles where the Dallas Mavericks were in town to take on the Los Angeles Lakers. And it was Tuesday where Harlan and Jensen met for the first time. And this was an important meeting in this whole process. This sort of set the tone. From what I've heard, Alex Jensen essentially expressed that he was ready and willing to take the job. And obviously, you can assume that Utah expressed their interest in him. And so from there, I think that meeting really set this off on the right foot. From there, I think Utah had to go through a coaching search. I reached out to somebody that works in NCAA compliance to find out if there are requirements from the NCAA with open coaching searches and job openings and that sort of thing. And what he told me is it's not an NCAA requirement, but there are often state and not federal, but state laws that require an open search, candidates. There are requirements in a job opening like this in state universities, and so I've been digging, trying to figure out if that's the case here. I believe it is, but I haven't been able to confirm, and hopefully I'll be able to confirm that whenever we get the opportunity to speak with Mark Harlan and President Randall and them to just kind of get a feel for the coaching search and what they had to go with. But anyways, so Tuesday, Harlan Jensen met. On Wednesday, conversations continue to happen between Jensen and Utah. I think President Randall got on the phone with him at one point, and I believe Jensen spoke with a number of other people around the program as well. So Wednesday, those conversations continue to happen. Meanwhile, Utah, going through their search, landed on a few candidates to interview. I shouldn't say a few, a couple. Going through a list of candidates, and I don't know exactly how many candidates there were to begin this whole search, but I know that they honed in on New Mexico head coach Richard Pitino and TV analyst Josh Pastner as two candidates to interview. That also combined with interviewing Alex Jensen, and Andre Miller, who interviewed for the job on Sunday. So those were the 4 candidates that Utah interviewed in this process, and those happened over the span of, I think, over the weekend, with Utah getting together, Utah officials getting together Sunday night and confirming that that Jensen was the top choice. But I will say that there was and has been a buzz about Pitino and the impression he made in his interview. I think he would have been the top option, had Utah needed to pivot. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that. But I will also say that Andre Miller made a very strong impression in his interview process as well, from what I've gathered. And so, we'll see what happens with Dre. I've heard a lot of good things in terms of the likelihood that he eventually joins the program. But yeah, that's what I've heard. And so Sunday and into Monday, obviously we get the report from John Rothstein that Utah has had narrowed in on Jensen as the top target, but there had not been an offer extended. And basically what I think what we've seen over the last 2 days is, I think Utah came to the conclusion, obviously, came to the conclusion he was clearly the top guy from the beginning, but making that decision, and then, essentially, Alex, we want you to be the guy. The last 2 days have essentially been contract negotiations and finalizing the details of his contract. I haven't heard specifics in terms of, the details, but what I have heard is this should land somewhere right in the middle of the Big 12 in terms of other coaches' salaries, which should land, somewhere between $3.5 million and $4 million. And so, you can contrast that to what Craig Smith had, of about $2 million, and it seems Utah's doubling, almost doubling the coach's salary, which is pretty significant. So, we'll wait to see on actual details once those numbers become available. But based on what I've heard, I think Jensen is going to land somewhere around that range. So I think that's what we've been dealing with the last couple of days, and why, Sean O'Connell tweeting out what he tweeted, that Jensen is set to take the job, but then he had to walk it back. The deal wasn't done, all of that sort of stuff. It's just, we've been dealing with contract negotiations essentially, and that's where we're at. But again, from the beginning, both parties expressed interest in one another, and so, it was all just a matter of finalizing the deal, which has obviously now been done. So with that, the impact. This is, like I said, this is significant for running Utes basketball. Without a doubt, the most important dynamic of Jensen's hire is the impact that it will have with the fan base. Obviously, over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of apathy that set in with the fan base. In those final years of the Kraskowiak era and the last few years, with Craig, I thought, the fans have showed up. The crowd attendance has improved, this season. It's been pretty consistent this year, but still there are a lot of empty seats in the lower bowl, and there are still a lot of season ticket holders. And I think, it'll be interesting to finally get those seats filled. And so from what I've heard, the Utah ticket office has already received a great number of calls about season tickets, pending the hire of Alex Jensen. And so you can already get the feeling that Jensen's hiring is going to have, a positive impact in terms of, the fan base, the excitement for the program, the investment from the fan base, and the attendance at games. I think that's going to be impacted rather significantly. And so I think with, Jensen's hiring, It will certainly come with promises of greater resources for the program, which will be, I think, pretty significant. I think what we could see is an increase of 3 to 4 times the amount that Utah has had this past year, where we're talking about Utah being at the bottom of the league, at somewhere between 2 and 2.5 million. I think it's from what I've heard. I think Utah is going to have resources more around 6 to 8 million, potentially even more. With the with revenue sharing and with more boosters becoming, returning to Utah basketball. We won't know until fall, but I think it's fair to have the thinking that Utah is going to increase their NIL budget pretty significantly with the hiring of Alex Jensen. So I think that's huge. And as we've gotten into Big 12 play, it's been a lot of fun. It's great to be in such a competitive basketball conference. And I haven't been to too many away games this year, but you can feel it, you can see it, the fan base and the impact that fan bases have on these games. Home court advantage is a real thing in the Big 12, and I think for Utah to reignite that passion amongst the fans will be felt much greater with Jensen at the helm. And so, with Jensen, obviously his background, his resume is really encouraging. He got his start at St. Louis, where he coached under Rick Majerus for 4 years. He took over as head coach of the Canton Charge and turned that G League team from a middle of the pack Eastern, I don't know what it was back then, but they finished 7th in their division or conference, whatever it was. And that next year, in year 2 as head coach, they finished first in the regular season standings. Alex Jensen was named Coach of the Year in the G League. And so, he has an understanding of what it means to lead, a team and an organization. And so he's familiar with that. And then, over the last 12 years, he's served in the NBA as an NBA assistant, going from a player development assistant, getting his opportunity with the Utah Jazz. And he's become a top assistant in the league with his time under Quinn Snyder, and now the last 2 seasons with the Dallas Mavericks under Jason Kidd. And so, you can go throughout his history, and you can read old articles, and you can see how positively players and coaches have talked about him. And so, it seems Utah's getting a guy that has a really good understanding of modern basketball, has a good understanding of player development, and you've heard it and read it from former players, former Utah coaches, that there is a certain formula, a certain recipe, as Josh Grant would put it, that you need to have success at Utah. And obviously I think he's talking, Grant referring more to recruiting and the need for Utah-born players and in-state players to represent the University of Utah. But too, I think the brand of basketball on the floor is key to that recipe. And I think with what Jensen has done in the NBA as a top assistant, he's playing a big role in game planning and game prep, where he's getting teams, his team ready for upcoming opponents, and in the playoffs, getting game plans prepared over a series. And so, all of these things are important aspects of what makes his resume so exciting, in bringing that to Utah. And doing it at the professional level. I think one thing that has been missing has been that professional feel, that organization from top to bottom. And I think to have somebody that's been in the professional realm, understands the importance of time and organization and working together as an organization, and allowing people to, fulfill their roles, fulfill their duties, and trusting them to do so. I think, all of those things are really important to have more of a CEO type as head coach. And I think Jensen, just given his background in the NBA, I think he's going to have a good understanding of that. So, I think there's obviously a lot to learn over the next couple of days. I don't know when we'll get a press conference or when we'll be able to talk to Alex Jensen and Mark Harlan and maybe President Randall as well. But it'll be interesting to dive into what Jensen wants to do with his coaching staff. Utah has a couple of really good assistants in Josh Eilert, who's serving as interim head coach right now. David Evans, has done a good job. He's made a good impression in terms of, his ability to coach and develop players, and he's got good recruiting ties to the state. And so, who, if anybody, does he want to keep on staff? Who does he want to bring in with him? Again, I mentioned this at the very beginning. Andre Miller, I think, is going to be a part of this. I don't know what sort of role he'll take on, but I do think eventually that Andre Miller will be added to the staff. That's mostly speculation, but that's based on things that I've heard. So we'll see. And then from there, what else beyond his top assistants? What does he want his support staff to look like? Does he want to bring anybody from the NBA with him? Does he want to bring somebody from a scouting department? Does he want to bring in his own GM? These are the sort of things that we'll learn once we get the opportunity to talk with them, and then over time, get a better feel for that. But that's certainly stuff that we'll keep a close eye on. Is what he wants to do with his staff. So, wow. Again, this is huge for Utah basketball. This is the guy. This is the guy that everybody wanted, and to land him, to secure him, to bring him in from the NBA, I think is huge. And just with his history, with his resume, with the relationships that he's developed, this is going to give Utah, a face that they can move forward with, a face of the program, essentially somebody that can bring, stability and belief. I feel for Craig Smith and what he's probably experienced over the last couple months, but he did a good job. But ultimately, I think this move is for the betterment of the program. I just think this does so much to raise the ceiling of the program, and I think that's what is needed. Essentially, is Utah needed to raise the ceiling. It needed to improve its potential, and in order to do that, you need greater resources for the program. And unfortunately, I just think as we got into year 4, that important relationships that play a role in the resources that go into supporting a basketball program, those relationships just weren't where they needed to be to not just sustain Utah going into the future, but to help it improve. I just don't think that was possible. So with this move, again, it just opens up so much potential for the program because of what is expected to happen with the fan base, with the excitement, with fans returning to games, season ticket holders actually showing up and sitting in those seats that that often are empty for games. To see those seats filled, to see potentially an increase in donations for the pro. I just think there's so much potential here for Utah, and this was the move that they had to make. So this is big. This is exciting. and Utah is going to be, in really good hands, in my opinion, and talking to former players and talking to guys that believe in Alex. I think this is the right guy, and I think this is the move Utah had to make in order to hopefully take that next step as a program. I think they showed this year that they can compete, but I think it's important to take. They've got to take another step, and in order to do that in this league, you need greater resources. In order to get those greater resources, supporters needed somebody to really believe in, and I think Alex is obviously that guy that they believe in. And so, again, just so much potential for Utah with this move. It'll be it's exciting to get your guy, and this is big. So this is I'll leave it at that. We'll see what else comes out. But this is my initial reaction to the news, and so appreciate you tuning in on this one, and I'll wrap it up here.